Good morning, sir. Can you see and hear us? So you're on mute at the moment, I think?
Yeah, yes, I can.
Thank you very much.
Before you call Mr. Singh to give evidence, Mr. Beer, I'd like to say a few words. Many of you will know that from reports in the media that a former sub-postmaster and co-participant, Mr. Thomas Brown, recently passed away. Mr. Brown began his career as a sub-postmaster in 1979 or 1980. He was based in the northeast of England, and over very nearly 30 years, he managed and owned post office branches in that area very successfully. An audit in 2008 purported to show a very large shortfall. That alleged shortfall was based upon data produced by Horizon. Mr. Brown was suspended, and shortly thereafter, his contract with the post office was terminated. In due course, Mr. Brown was declared bankrupt. The post office began criminal proceedings against Mr. Brown, which reached the Crown Court. However, my understanding is that the post office came to realize that there was no realistic prospect of successfully convicting Mr. Brown of any criminal offense, and accordingly, before the trial date, no evidence was offered, and Mr. Brown was acquitted. Mr. Brown was a claimant in the group litigation. He received a modest amount of compensation as a consequence of that litigation, and I understand that much more recently, he received an interim payment under the group litigation compensation scheme. However, Mr. Brown's compensation award under that scheme had not been finalized prior to his death. The inquiry team and I would like to extend our deepest sympathies to Mr. Brown's family and friends. From all that I have read and heard about Mr. Brown, he will be greatly missed. Thank you, Mr. Beer.
Thank you, sir. I know that Mr. Brown's family couldn't be here today to hear you say that, but they are watching, each of them, from the northeast in Newcastle, and I think in due course they're to apply to become core participants in the inquiry.
Well, one can never be certain of anything, but I imagine that their grounds for becoming co-participant are compelling, Mr. Beer.
Thank you, sir. So can I call Jarnail Singh, please?
Yes.
Yes. That's okay. Yeah.
I swear by Sundar Gupta
I swear by Sundar Gupta
that the evidence I shall give
that the evidence I shall give
shall be the truth,
shall be the truth,
the whole truth,
the whole truth,
and nothing but the truth.
and nothing but the truth. Thank you.
Please do take a seat, Mr. Singh.
Thank you very much.
Before Mr. Beer asks you any questions, Mr. Singh, I think it appropriate to address you as follows. Under our law, a witness at a public inquiry has the right to decline to answer a question put to him by counsel to the inquiry, by any recognized legal representative, or by me, if there is a risk that the answer to that question would incriminate the witness. This legal principle is known in shorthand form as the privilege against self-incrimination. Mr. Singh, fairness demands that I remind you of that principle before you give your evidence. If at any stage you wish to rely on the privilege, it is for you to make that clear to me in respect of any question put to you, i.e. you must tell me that you wish to rely upon the privilege against self-incrimination. If therefore any questions are put to you by any of the lawyers who ask you questions, or by me, which you do not wish to answer on the ground that to answer such questions might incriminate you, you must tell me immediately after any such question is put. At that point, I will consider your objection and thereafter rule upon whether your objection should be upheld. I understand from Mr. Beer that you are represented here today by a solicitor. No doubt, if the issue relating to self-incrimination arises, the solicitor will assist you, and if at any stage during the questioning you wish to consult your lawyer about the privilege against self-incrimination, you must tell me so that I can consider whether that is appropriate. Do you understand all that, Mr. Singh?
I do, sir. I'm very grateful. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Over to you, Mr. Beer.
Thank you, sir. My name is Jason Beer, and I ask questions on behalf of the inquiry. Can you give us your full name, please?
Jarnail Singh.
And thank you very much for coming to give evidence to the inquiry today and tomorrow, and for previously providing a witness statement to us. You should have a copy of that witness statement.
I've got it here, yes.
In front of you, thank you. It's 89 pages in length, excluding the indexes to the exhibits, and it's dated the 6th of October. For the transcript, the URN is WITN 0475 0100.
Yes.
If you turn to the 89th page, please.
Yes.
Is that your signature?
That is my signature, but I think we discussed before, I need to amend a few paragraphs.
Yes, before I was
Sorry.
ask you whether the contents are true to the best of your knowledge and belief, I think there are a series of corrections that you would like to make.
Yes, please.
Can we go to page 19, please, and paragraph 51,
51.
if that can be brought up on the screen, please. Paragraph 51.
Yes.
The sentence which reads, when the matter was committed to the Crown Court, once instructed, counsel were asked to draft the indictment and in doing so look at the summons and also provide advice on evidence. Essentially, they would revisit and review the whole case.
Yes.
What's the correction you would like to make to that?
Just to add paragraph, just to clarify, I think for you and anybody who wants to have a look at this statement, is that if we can add, after counsel has been instructed, the case papers are passed on or passed on to the legal executives to manage and progress the case in the Crown Court. That's all.
Thank you. Can we turn to page 25, please? And paragraph 70. This reads, a document references a meeting which I attended with Gareth Jenkins, Warwick Tatford and John Longman in October 2010. I do not recall this meeting or ever discussing Gareth Jenkins' witness statement with him. As far as I recall, I had very limited involvement with Mr. Jenkins. I cannot recall any discussions where he was informed of his duties to the court, although I would have assumed counsel would have informed him of the same. Which is the correction or clarification that you'd like to make?
The only word there is very limited. I think that can go. That can be, I had more involvement with Mr. Jenkins.
Sorry, so the sentence which says, as far
Very
as I recall, I had very limited involvement with
I had
Mr.
more.
Jenkins. Hold
Yeah,
on.
I had more.
Hold on.
Yeah.
Mr. Singh, if you let me ask the question first.
Sorry.
And then when I finish speaking, if you start speaking.
Yeah, let me look.
So the sentence which says, as far as I recall, I had very limited involvement with Mr. Jenkins. What is the amendment that you would like to make? Hold on.
Sorry,
what-
I was looking at you. Sorry, yeah.
What is the amendment that you would like to make to that?
That should read, as far as I recall, I had more or greater involvement with Mr. Jenkins.
So the opposite to what it says.
Yeah.
Is that right?
Yep.
The third correction, please. Page 26. paragraph 76, which is at the foot of the page. It reads, my understanding is that when a sub-postmaster was found guilty, repayment directions were given by the court. Counsel would forward these to the criminal law team, who'd make sure they were complied with by the defence. If enforcement proceedings were needed because the directions were not complied with, the investigation and security team would approach us and we would make the appropriate application to the court. To clarify, this was before the separation of the businesses. When the businesses separated, enforcement proceedings were dealt with by Cartwright King. What's the correctional clarification you'd like to make there?
Just give me a second. Yeah, where it says council would forward these to CLT, if we delete, if we add there something to the effect of, and these were copied on to the investigation and security team.
Thank you.
And I think if you delete, so it should read, my understanding is that when suppose we're found guilty, repayment directions are given by the court, council would forward these to CLT, who would in turn copy this to the investigation and security team. And if we can then, who would make sure they were complied with by the defence. If enforcement procedures were needed because the direction was not complied, security would approach, and I think that's fine. That's fine. Okay.
So it was the enforcement team who would make sure they were complied with
Yes.
by the defence, not the criminal law team?
Yes.
Is that the effect of the amendment you want to make?
Yes.
So it should read, council would forward these to the criminal law team and the enforcement team, the latter of whom would make sure they were complied with by the defence?
Yes.
Thank you. And then lastly, page 67. Paragraph 200, towards the bottom of the page.
Oh.
It reads, I had limited contact with Mr. Jenkins, and I'm not in a position to comment on any views that he expressed in relation to the disclosure being sought by the defence and the relevance of the materials sought to the case. His main point of contact was John Longman. What's the correct clarification?
Yeah, I think that's
hold on.
where, yeah.
Hold on.
Yeah, sorry, I should be looking at you.
What's
Sorry.
the correctional clarification that you would like to make to that, please?
I think that should be, I had more contact with Mr. Jenkins.
So it should read, I had more contact with Mr. Jenkins
I had, yeah, it's something.
and am or am not in a position to comment.
Hang on, contact is not going I think that's. Yeah, I think that'd be fine. I think that'll be.
That should stay. So it's, I had more contact with
Yeah,
Mr.
yeah.
Jenkins. Okay. With those four corrections brought into account, are the contents of that witness statement true to the best of your knowledge and belief?
Yes, yes, it is.
Thank you. A copy of that witness statement is going to be uploaded to the inquiry's website, and I'm not going to ask you about every part of it. Do you understand?
Yes, yes.
But that can come down, thank you. You've come today to assist the inquiry with the issues arising in phase 4 of the inquiry. That is the investigation and prosecution of sub-postmasters for criminal offences. We're going to ask you to return kindly next year to give evidence about the issues in phases 5 and 6 of the inquiry. And that includes your interactions with Simon Clark, your interactions with Cartwright King more generally, the circumstances in which Mr. Clark's shredding advice came to be written, your involvement with the second site reviews, your communications with Susan Crichton and other senior members of the Post Office, Chris Ojard as well, and Brian Altman, KC. I'm not going to ask you about those matters today, although some of the documents that I'm going to refer you to touch on phase 4 issues, even though they were created in 2012, 2013 and 2014. Can I start, please, with your professional background? in your witness statement, in paragraphs 6, 7 and 8, which is on page 3, no need to display it for the moment, you describe your roles within the Royal Mail Group and with Post Office Limited, and you exhibit a copy of your CV, your curriculum vitae, setting out your qualifications and your career. Can I summarise it, those two sources, paragraph 6, 7 and 8, and the CV as follows, and tell me whether I get it right? Firstly, is it right that between 1985 and 1989, you were a legal executive in private practice, and that involved work in two firms? In the latter firm, you worked in conveyancing, buying and selling houses.
Yes.
You joined the Post Office as a legal executive in December 1989, and again you worked in conveyancing, specifically in the Post Office's commercial conveyancing department.
Yes, yes, I did.
Whilst you were working for the Post Office, you were admitted as a solicitor in December 1992, is that right?
That's right, yes.
And does that mean that you were studying for your Law Society finals whilst you were working in the conveyancing department?
Yes, I was, yes.
And then in September 1993, you transferred to the Post Office's litigation department, is that right?
That's right, yes.
And that was handling civil work, is that correct?
No, that was the civil litigation department before I joined the prosecution department.
Yeah, so you transferred to the litigation department in September 1993 and worked on civil work.
Civil work, yes.
And then in August 1995, you transferred to the prosecutions department.
That's right, yes.
You tell us in your CV that upon transfer to the prosecutions department, you were the senior lawyer in the prosecutions department, is that
Yes,
right?
yes, I was, yes.
Was there only one senior lawyer in the prosecutions department?
When I joined, no, I think the structure of the team was, I think there was the head of criminal law team.
Sorry, say that again?
There was the structure of the prosecution department when I joined was that there were head of the criminal law team.
Who was that?
And that was Mike Heath. And then you had 8 senior lawyers on the same position, I think they were. And then you had 3 or 4 legal executives, 3 or 4 admin staff, and 4 or 5 secretaries.
I see. It's just in your CV, if we can have it up on the screen, WITN 0475 0101. Thank you. And if we look at the second page and look at the foot of the page, do you see the last paragraph where it says, in August 1995, I transferred to the prosecution department division as the senior lawyer?
No, well, maybe the D need to come out. I mean, I think we were all on the same grade, basically. Some more experienced than others, but they were all known as senior lawyers, and I think subsequently they changed the titles.
So where it says the senior lawyer, that's a bit misleading, isn't it?
Possibly.
So that should be as one of 8 senior lawyers, and there wasn't any other grade. We were all senior lawyers.
Yes, I think so, I think.
Okay. And did that remain the case, that you were the one of the senior lawyers?
Yes.
Until separation in 2012?
I don't know, then subsequently there were various structures, there were various roles, name changes to principal and principal lawyers and team leaders and all sorts of things like that. But generally we were in the same grade doing more or less the same work.
Okay. That can come down, thank you. Did you manage other lawyers?
No, I don't think any of us did, apart from the team leader or the head of criminal law. I think they managed. I don't think anybody actually managed anybody else, apart from the legal executive. They basically assisted you. They worked with you, rather than sort of manage them as such, because they were experienced.
And so when the name senior lawyer got changed to team leader, you weren't in fact leading a team at all?
I don't think it's. I think the only. I don't think anything really changed apart from separation. On separation, obviously, I was the only.
Just talking about before separation.
No. I think there was a team leader, or not team leader. He was the head of criminal law. I think that was one grade, and I think he managed and supervised everybody else.
Okay, just a moment ago you said that the name changed from senior lawyer to principal lawyer to team leader, referring to the role you were undertaking. Did that happen before separation in 2012?
No, sorry, it's probably, I'm trying to sort of adjust to the inquiries. There was sorry, let me clarify. There was the head of criminal law team.
Yep.
He managed basically the senior lawyers. And I think the principal...
Sorry, he managed the senior lawyers?
He managed all the team, basically. The legal executive, the secretaries, the admin, and also... the lawyers. That's basically it. He was the head of the team.
And so from August 95 until separation in 2012, you remained the same grade, senior lawyer?
More or less, yes.
More or less, or in fact the same?
Yeah, I mean, nothing changed for me, no.
Now, at the time you became the senior lawyer, you were, I think by my calculations, 2 years and 8 months qualified. Is that right?
Yes, I think so.
And you hadn't practiced in criminal law whilst you'd worked at the post office. Is that right?
Not with the post office, no.
Had you ever done any prosecution work before?
When I first started, I was the personal representative under the duty scheme, when it came in 1984, 85, whenever it was, when I worked very closely with one of the senior partners in the firm, the first firm I joined, and I did about 3-4 years with them.
That was defending, though, presumably?
It was defending, but he did quite a bit of prosecution. I assisted him. I don't know whether it was trading standards or something like that now. I mean, years and years ago now. But he did something, and I did a lot of preparation for him, did all the research and everything else. But I have that's right. I mean, you could say that. Certainly, that was the only experience I had of criminal law.
As a legal exec?
As a legal exec, yes.
Had you done any private prosecution work?
No.
Had you ever had to give advice on the full code test in the Code for Crown Prosecutors?
Prior to
joining as a senior lawyer in August 1995?
No.
Had you ever had to determine questions of evidential sufficiency, whether to move to a charge or a summons before?
Not on the prosecution side of it. I mean, certainly I've looked at the evidence, taken witness statements for the senior partner. Most of the preparation work was done by me.
Had you ever had to deal with whether a prosecution was in the public interest from the prosecution side?
No.
And did you always report to the head of the criminal law team?
We're talking about now the post office prosecution.
Yes.
Yes.
From August 95 to
was.
Separation in 2012.
Yeah. Well, I inherited a very small casework, but I worked very closely with two of the senior lawyers. Very, very closely.
Who were they?
I worked very closely with the one or two senior lawyers.
Yes, and who were they?
There was Tony Brentnall and one of the lady who's Debbie Staples.
Were you reporting, nonetheless, only to the head of criminal law?
I think
Was he or she your line manager?
I think it was. I suppose. Yes, I think so. Yes.
And did that remain constant until separation in 2012?
I think it was Mike Heath originally, and then I think when Rob Wilson took over, yes, he was. Yes.
And so they were your line managers?
They were the line managers. Yes.
And where were you located?
In firstly Impact House in Croydon, and then subsequently Victoria, Ankleson Street in Victoria.
And were all of the lawyers located there?
All the prosecution team has always been together in, either in Impact House or Victoria.
And was this your full-time job?
Yes.
You didn't have any other jobs?
Well, I had a consultancy type of thing going on, but that's more to do with working with somebody else to gain some other experience. But it wasn't substantive or anything like that. It was a bit like a hobby. It would be like being monitored in a business capacity type of thing. It was a businessman I met, and he wanted me to do some work for him, and he was basically acting as my mentor. And I set up a consultancy in consultation with the Law Society, and it was properly registered under the legislation. The Law Society knew about it, the Post Office knew about it, but it didn't have any impact on any of the work I did for the Post Office at all.
Can we just look at your CV, please? WITN 0475 0101. You set out your employment history here, if we scroll down. And then if we go over the page, please. December 89 to May 15, so 26 years at the Post Office in its various guises. And then if we go to the foot of the page, please. It says April 1996 to present. J. Singh Judge Solicitors, Crawley, West Sussex.
Yes.
And then over the page, please. In relation to property law, experience in both commercial and residential property law, including have a detailed, I think that must mean including having a detailed knowledge of the Landlord and Tenant Act 1987, the Housing Act 1996,
Yes.
the Leasehold Reform, Housing and Urban Development Act 1993, Land Registration Act 2002, and the Common Hold and Leasehold Reform Act 2002. Acted on numerous residential conveyances in the local Crawley, Horsham and West Sussex areas, as well as lease and rental agreements for both private and council tenancies. Extensive experience in all property matters up to senior level dealing, including the following buying and selling of residential and commercial properties. I think there's some words missing there. Commercial and residential remortgage applications, transfer of equity, drafting leases, drafting commercial assignments, leases, licenses, auction transactions, and property litigation. Work with a range of clients, including large and small businesses, including acquiring, selling, leasing, or developing property of all types, limited companies and limited liability partnerships, and private individuals with active portfolios. And then I think a full stop. Freehold commercial property acquisition and funding, including the introduction of commercial lenders where appropriate. We were an accredited Law Society conveyancing quality scheme practice. Our accreditation provides, presumably that means provided, our accreditation provided recognition of our adherence to good practice management standards and commitment to providing efficient and high quality conveyancing procedures, which also led to our introduction onto the panel for some major high street mortgage lenders. Is that all accurate, that from 1996 onwards you were doing that?
Yes, it is, yes. At that time, the indemnity insurance was taken care of by the Law Society, and it was practical. It worked. Yes, it did.
So you had two jobs?
There wasn't that much work in that sense, but what I did do was I worked very closely with the previous employers, referring work to them. So the firm I left beforehand, and the previous firm when first I started. A lot of the work was done for the local community, more or less. They came to see me, and I referred them on. It wasn't sort of a full-time job as such. It's more or less doing the community service, like putting something back in the community, more than
it looks
actually
like
commercial.
I'm so sorry, I spoke over you.
Sorry.
It looks like quite a lot of work.
Well, it looks like on paper it's completely different to what the reality was. The reality was that it worked for me, instead of collecting stamps, I was able to put something back in the community. A lot of the people were grateful for it, for the referral, for the recommendations I made. And the Law Society was happy with it. It was the Law Society who recommended it. And I said, look, this is what I'm doing. This is my full-time job. The post office obviously doesn't interfere. There's no conflict. But this is what I want to do. And I think they actually recommended very kindly, said, well, look, why don't you set it up as a consultancy? You can do both. And I think as and when the practice certificate were up for renewal.
Sorry, can you just slow down?
Sorry, I can't see. As and when the practice certificate came up for renewal, it was done as a bulk renewal by the post office, and they knew very well what I was doing. But it didn't interfere, because it's like, either collecting stamps or doing something which is useful to the community, it was useful to me, and that was the reason why I did what I had to do.
It is a summary of that for the entirety of the period that we were looking at, as well as being a senior lawyer in the prosecutions department at the post office. You were also in private practice.
It was, yes, you could say that, but it didn't interfere.
Well, I am saying it, and I'm asking you whether it's true.
It is true, yes. But it was true up to about year 2000, 2001, and I think after that, the indemnity insurance got so much, purely because it went on the free market. Sort of 20, 30 pounds a month, they went up to God knows what it did, and all I did then was restricted to monitoring, I think it is the expression, by this businessman. I did bits and pieces for him, a bit, advised him, drafted letters and things for him, because he was grateful for that.
You said that it is true up until 2000. If we look at the foot of the previous page, it says April 96 to present.
Yeah, present, it's true. Presently, as you know, the work I've done, I'm working as a consultant for one of the firms.
Hold on, just stop. If we look at the next page, please. And scroll down. Here you detail what you do since you left the post office. Now, I'm not going to ask you any questions about what you've done since you left the post office.
Okay.
Because that's March 26 onwards, and then August 2021 onwards.
Yes.
I'm asking you about this period from April 1996 to the present day. You've just told us that, in fact, it was only until until 2000 or 2001 that carried on.
Well, maybe that needs correcting or amending, but certainly it's in existence. But I don't do any work through it purely because I don't want to do it. But if I wanted to, I could do. It's there. If I want to put it into practice now, that the fact is that I can't use it purely because I'm inundated with a lot of paperwork from the inquiry. So, this is a full-time job, dealing with the inquiry, the questions and preparing statements and reading the documentation forwarded to me by the inquiry. But it's in existence. Any time I want to work with it, I can do. It always has been, and I think the law side is quite happy for it to be there. I mean, there's nothing untowards in that. I mean, I don't know what's the point you were trying to make. It didn't interfere with the
I'm not
work
making any point. I'm just letting you speak at the moment.
Yeah. Okay. Well, you tell me what the upshot of it, and I'll explain it to you.
I've asked you, is it correct that for the entirety of the period that we're looking at, as well as being a senior lawyer in the prosecutions department, you were also in private practice? And I think you said yes.
Yes. Yes, I suppose I was. Yes.
And if we scroll up this page, please. You were acting on numerous residential conveyances in that period, correct?
Correct.
You were working with large and small businesses, buying and selling or leasing properties, is that correct?
That's correct as well, yes.
And you say this is the equivalent to having a hobby of collecting stamps?
Yes.
Yes, we'll move on, thank you. In paragraph 7, that can come down, of your witness statement, you say that when you transferred over to the post office in 2012, you were the only in-house criminal lawyer within the criminal law team, is that right?
That's right.
What was the reason for the post office reducing the number of in-house criminal lawyers?
I think you need to ask somebody senior. I have no idea why they did that. All they did was separated the businesses, and I think the business plan was to have one senior lawyer, one a senior criminal lawyer, one commercial lawyer to head those teams, and have, my understanding was to oversee or manage the work done by a private firm who attended the work out to the private firms. I think that was their model, and I fitted in with the the criminal law aspect of it, or the prosecution side of it.
And so the model was to outsource the work to a firm, is that right? But retain one lawyer in-house.
Yes.
From 2012 onwards, from the separation of the business onwards, did you manage any other criminal lawyers within the post office?
No, because there are no other criminal lawyers there.
It was just you?
Yes, me.
From that time onwards, from separation onwards, was the criminal law team sufficiently staffed? I.e. by you, and you alone?
You mean this is Post Office Limited now, 1st of April 12 onwards? No.
It wasn't sufficiently
staffed.
In what respect wasn't it sufficiently staffed?
Well, firstly, I had no assistants. I had no, at CLT, had the criminal law team, prior to it, I had a secretary who basically did all the typing for me, because I'm not very good at IT. I had a desktop, but I dictated everything to her. She put everything together. Then you had the legal executives putting the bundles together for the jury, for the advance information for the magistrates' court. I didn't have any of that. So I basically said, look, I can't do the job you're trying to tell me to do. So a lot of the work, basically all the work, literally from the beginning to the end of the case, went to Cartwright King. So that was the only way it worked. So the only thing I did was basically manage them and did the admin or the advice sought by the seniors within the post office.
Thank you. And did you complain about this?
Well, I don't know what you mean by complaint. I mean,
raise a grumble, express your dissatisfaction, express annoyance, or other cognate expression.
Well, it was an open planned office. We had the head of legal, which was I've forgotten his name now, Hugh Flemington, I think it was, and the director of or counsel was Susan Crichton. She was a lovely lady, and Hugh, we got on really well. We, as and when I needed them to discuss matters, I did. I said, well, look, I can't deal with it the way it is, the way I want to do it, because the whole point was it was a challenge, and I've been always up for challenges. And I think they understood, or they didn't understand. I don't know what they did or didn't do about it now. But certainly I did the best I could, and I was glad that you had Cartwright King with their senior expertise to work with. That's the sort of thing I was looking for, basically, and I just fitted in with their team, and that's how it sort of worked out for me, and I was able to have a direct communication with them. And I think every time on my phone, there was always somebody on the other side to discuss matters, to help me with some of the advices internally, which the post office needed or wanted.
You had a long career as a criminal lawyer within the Royal Mail Group and then the Post Office Limited.
Yes.
Given that long career within the criminal law team until you left the post office in 2015, it's right, isn't it, that you presided over a number of prosecutions which have subsequently been found by the Court of Appeal to involve miscarriages of justice. That's right, isn't it?
That's right, yes.
Including a number where the Court of Appeal has found that the post office didn't actually have any proof that loss had occurred to the organisation.
Yes.
In your witness statement, would you agree that you accept no personal responsibility for any of the actions or omissions related to the specific cases that you're asked about?
How do you mean? What do you mean by that?
you don't accept any personal responsibility for any mistakes made in relation to the cases that we asked you about in your witness statement?
Well, obviously, I'm very grieved.
That's a different issue.
And I'm embarrassed and sorry. I mean, I think maybe we ought to start by me apologising directly to the sub-postmasters. Obviously, I do, feel their pain and hurt, and I think feel the same. I mean, I've never met any of them. My basically employment, a job entailed, or my role entailed, the paperwork I received, I assessed it in line with the law, the evidence, the public interest, and whether it was appropriate for charges to go before the courts. So in that respect, I didn't do the complete job. I didn't do the investigations. I didn't know anything about the Horizon system in the sense of how it operated. So we actually had a witness statement to actually explain it. And then we had the barristers in turn to approve it. And then it went before the judge to deal with the enforcement side of things if he needed. So in that respect, of course, I feel very upset and aggrieved that it gone so far, because the whole idea of becoming a lawyer wasn't to do any wrong. And I didn't want to be here today. I wanted to enjoy a long legal career within the post office or whoever, and now to carry on doing the next stage of my life. And certainly in that respect, of course, I take responsibility for what I've done. And sometimes you wake up, sometimes you can't sleep and say, well, I wish I'd done more. Why did I accept the fact that Horizon was robust when it wasn't? But this has been going on since about year 2000, when it first came into place. And after that, and I think I more or less started doing more of the sub-postmaster work purely because I think when Debbie Staples went off and started doing the Royal Mail work and started working from home. So you rely on other people to tell you that the system is working. The investigation officers, again, should have been the ones who should have got the evidence from the operators and say, no, we need more evidence. But then maybe it's our fault as lawyers and say, no, where's your proof? Prove where the shortfall is. But I think we're sort of more was relying on what we can only do with what we've been given. That is the paperwork, and we thought that was appropriate. And we worked as a sort of team together, and we formulated. I think I told you about the template, which we followed it religiously. Well, I certainly did religiously, so that we don't overlook anything. On top of it, all our work was independently assessed and marked, if you like, by the independent barristers.
What scores did they give you when they marked your work?
I don't think they actually gave us a mark, but certainly if there was no proof, or but there was no proof or whatever it is, they would turn it back and say, no, it's not good enough. We're not going to proceed with it because there's no evidence.
In the long answer you've just given, you reflect the approach that you've taken in your witness statement. Would you agree? Generating an air of detachment from you personally, from everything that was going on, blaming the individual investigators, the Fujitsu witnesses and Fujitsu the company, and the independent bar for anything that had gone wrong. That's your overall take, isn't it?
Absolutely not. I take full responsibility for the bits I was involved in. But you cannot work alone on these things, can't you? If you're going to do something successful, I think that no person can actually exist on his own. You've got to work it together. You've got to piece everything together. I'm not blaming the investigators. I'm not blaming the bar. All I'm saying is that I took this role very, very seriously. I take this. It really hurts me to actually prosecute anybody, to somebody to go to court, and then lose their livelihood, and also to lose, on top of it, not only that, and then the damage to the reputation and credibility when there shouldn't have been any need for it.
Overall, would you agree that the impression that you seek to create in your witness statement is one of acting with the utmost professionalism at all times, but of sorrow and being hurt after the event. Because if only you had known about Horizon, everything would have been very different.
Absolutely not. I'm not that sort of person. It's not the way, maybe it come across wrong. It's not, I take full responsibility for the hurt and the sorrow of people's purses. And I think I was going to actually apologise to Julian Wilson's family, saying that he's not here to see that his good name has been put intact and things been put right. They're the ones who were telling everybody that the Horizon system is wrong, and nobody believed them. And they've been proved right now, and I'm with them.
I think in those answers you said that you take responsibility for any mistakes that you made.
Well, I think we work for the...
Is that right?
Yes. And, well, I wish none of this has happened.
What mistakes did you make?
Well, the mistakes I made, presumably relying on other people to tell me how wonderful this system was. But then I wasn't the only one working there. I mean, you had... like I said, we had a team who worked on these cases. We had investigations throughout the country. Maybe it was just a big organisation. We couldn't manage it all. Maybe we were just given too much work to deal with. I don't know, but the answer is. But certainly, I take responsibility for everything. I mean, the last one I wanted to do is have what I got, what I'm faced with now. Faced with the sub postmaster who I advised on, saying that there's sufficient evidence. Being prosecuted and then being sentenced to something that they've been wrongly convicted of, and then being punished when they shouldn't have been. And I hope this inquiry give them something so they can actually get on with their lives.
Have you identified any mistake that you made personally?
Well, the mistake I made was the fact that I was, again, like everybody else, led to believe that this system was good when it wasn't.
So you didn't make a mistake yourself personally in anything you did, other than placing reliance on other people?
Well, no, I'm like anything else. I mean, I thought I was probably the one, well, certainly I can tell you from what I did. All I did was I had a template each and every time. I put in the tests and I followed it through all the way to the actual matter going to the court, even the disclosure aspect of it. I mean, I took that very, very seriously. And I, in turn, read through it, went away, came back, made a few notes. So I don't know what you're asking me to say. Yes, of course I put my hand up. Of course I made mistakes. Everybody does. But these were very, very serious mistakes. And I wholeheartedly wish they never had ever happened. And I sometimes wish, when I had the opportunity to leave the post office, which I left before this mess, basically. That's all it is, isn't it? Because it wasn't somebody senior should have said, well, no, where's the evidence? Where's the evidence? Maybe the biggest mistake anybody made was to actually say, look, this isn't good. Well, where's the evidence? Where is the evidence the system is actually good?
You said in the course of one of the previous three answers that it hurt you to prosecute anyone.
Yes.
Can I see whether that's true? Can we look, please, at paragraph 206 and 207 of your witness statement, please, which is on page 69. It will come up on the screen. So witness statement, page 69.
Are you going to display on... Yeah.
It will come up. It takes a little while.
Okay, thank you.
It's 206 and 207. You say, I've considered my email dated the 21st of October 2010 and my memo to Post Office Security and others dated the 16th of November 2010.
Yeah.
At the time, I thought the outcome of the case was a success and I was relieved that the case was concluded. There's a comment in my email that it's hoped that the case will set a marker to dissuade other defendants from jumping on the Horizon bashing bandwagon. I was asked to report back to the team, and in doing so, I commented on the outcome and the fact that the defence's criticisms of the Horizon IT system were dealt with, and that the prosecution case was made out. I was aware that the case was of wider interest with the business, and my comment in relation to other cases was made with this in mind. The wording of the email also had some input from counsel.
Yes.
Can we look, please, at the email to which you're referring there? Poll 309 3686. And page 5, please. If we can focus on the email on the bottom part of the page, please. Can you see that there's an email there sent? You can just see it on the right-hand side. It's sort of squished in. Marilyn Benjamin, I think, on behalf of Jarnail Singh, sent on the 21st of October 2010 at 2:58. Can you see that?
Yes, I can.
The subject, Regina against Seema Misra, Guildford Crown Court, trial, attack on Horizon. Can you see that this email does not appear to be part of a chain?
I don't know what you mean by that.
Do you know what a chain of emails is?
Yes, yes, I know. Yes.
And if you look, for example, at the following page, it's blank.
Yes.
No email there.
Yeah.
And then if we go back to page 5, if you look at the subject heading, can you see that? The subject heading, if that could just be highlighted.
Oh, attack on Horizon. Yeah.
It doesn't say Regina against Seema Misra or FW : Seema Misra when you reply to an email or forward an email. The subject heading changes, doesn't it?
I don't know.
You don't know that. Would you agree that this looks like an originating email from you? You started off the conversation here.
Well, I was asked, normally, I mean, if you've seen the previous reports, they're basically done by legal executives. The case comes in and we've got a format for it, and they do it. And I think in this case, I did ask Phil Taylor to do it, and I was told that, Jarnail, look, you need to do this because it's going to a wider, well, you know, the wider audience within the business. That's the reason why I did it. And then I did basically, you know, told the first bit, saying, look, this case was a lengthy trial at Guildford Crown Court. After
We can see what the email says. We're going to come to that in a moment.
Okay.
But would you agree that you appear to have started the conversation off here by this email?
Yes.
And
yes.
so you picked both the title and the distribution list.
Well, I was given the distribution. I don't
Who
know.
gave you the distribution list?
I think maybe Rob Wilson, maybe I think Mandy Talbot.
So how would they give you the distribution list, Rob Wilson and Mandy Talbot?
Well, they said, look, these people are interested. These business, these units are interested in this case, and you need to send it. Even that Doug Evans was the, I don't know, head of legal, basically, of the whole business. I've never sent Doug Evans anything of that nature.
So would they have emailed you a distribution list, or would they have told you orally to whom you need to send the...
I don't know. I mean, this is going back 12, 13 years.
Yes.
But yeah, I mean,
one way or another, they would have given you the distribution.
Yeah, I don't know any of them. I mean, even Susan Crichton, I probably met her. I didn't know her. Certainly, any of them. I mean, Mandy Talbot, I know, because I think she was in the civil litigation in the same building and Impact House at Croydon. Hugh Flemington, I don't know who he was. I mean, obviously, subsequently, when I joined the Post Office Limited on the 1st of April 12, I've never met him. I don't know who he was. Jacqueline, I don't know. Jessica Madron, yes, I think she was at Impact House. John, in all the rest of them, I've never even met, or I don't know who they were. So certainly I wouldn't have just plucked them out of the air and put them in.
And so you at least picked, if you didn't pick the distribution list, you picked the subject title of the email.
I don't know.
Well, or was that dictated to you?
If there is, it was dictated to me. If you look at one of the enclosures the inquiry sent me, it's a cover, a brown cover of the file. I don't know where it is now. And that's what it was. You know, said, Jarnail, you ought to do it. You're the senior lawyer. It's your case, that type of thing. And that's when I did the first bit. Then I was told, look, you need to do a little bit more because it's going to go to our communication team. I didn't even know we had a communication in existence. Basically, then that last bit about the jumping on the horizon, bashing.
I haven't asked you about that. All I'm asking you about at the moment is the bit in
well,
yellow.
let's stick with that. No, well, it wasn't my idea to put it the way it is. What I would have done in the post office, Limited versus Seema Misra. This was the result. The case was concluded after a lengthy trial, and she was she was found guilty by the jury.
Whose idea was it? Who dictated to you that the words "attack on horizon" needed to be included in the subject line?
I don't know. I can't
Help us.
I honestly, it's such a long time ago. I wish I could. I mean, let me, you know, this thing, your papers, the inquiries have formed in me. I've read them so many times, you will not believe it, because I do want to come and assist. And if that heading was not something that it naturally would come to me, let me put it to you that way. And what I would
It was something that would come naturally to you, because you viewed this case, didn't you, Mr. Singh, as being about an attack on horizon, didn't you?
Absolutely not.
And that's why you've headed your email up that way.
No. I can honestly say, let me put it this way. Look, Mr. Bear, no.
Who viewed the case as an attack on horizon?
Well, I think after a period, I think it started off as a very simple case. I think Mrs. Misra pleaded guilty.
No. Who viewed the case as an attack on horizon?
I don't know. I mean, I wish I could assist. I don't know. I honestly do not know.
But you didn't.
I did not.
So you're typing an email.
I didn't type it.
Okay, you're dictating it to your secretary.
Yes. And I think, like I told you, if you look back at the cover of the file, I don't know who I was talking to. And that's where I didn't have a paper, so I jotted the notes on the cover of the file. And you know, if you give me time at the break, I will tell you where it is. But there is a cover where there's scribbles and whatever it is on it.
I think I know the document you're referring to.
Yeah.
But are you saying somebody dictated
Yes.
you needed to use the words attack on horizon?
Absolutely.
Hold on. You dictated an email even though you didn't believe that it was a case about an attack on horizon.
Well,
is that where
I don't know
we've got
about
to?
but there's attack on the horizon. The horizon got no stake in the horizon. I don't even know how it operated or anything of that nature. Certainly, dealing with the Misra case, I mean, it opened my eyes to all sorts of things. I mean, before I didn't have. All I was trying to express to you originally was that my case was that you have the investigation file, you assess it as appropriate in line with evidence in the public interest test. And then if there's an appropriate charge, you put it before the court for the court to decide. But certainly this thing doesn't come naturally to me. My thing was I finished the job, the case is completed, legal executives managed it, and they would have concluded the case. They would have done reported to the post office support office and CC'd in the officer. That would have been a normal. But because this case was the only case that actually had a lot of, actually went to trial, I think, and obviously all of a sudden everybody was interested in it. Susan Crichton, I mean, I don't know what position she had at that time, but I'm sure it was a senior. And certainly the other people involved in it, presumably they had some sort of...
Why was this case viewed by others as an attack on horizon, rather than simply a lady in criminal proceedings saying that she was not guilty of stealing money, rather the operation of the system and errors within it were to blame for the losses?
I think you're asking the wrong person. I certainly wouldn't
So
be.
the man that dictated the email that says attack on Horizon is the wrong person to ask why the case was viewed as an attack on Horizon. Is that where we've got to, Mr. Singh?
I think so. Honestly, this sort of thing doesn't come naturally to me, and certainly I would have completed the case. I'm the lawyer in the case, and I would have got one of the legal executives to, in a normal scheme of things, they would have reported, concluded the case, and that would have been it. And certainly because of the importance of the other side, the other aspect of the business, or the wider business internally, that's why it was dealt with in that way.
Isn't it the case that your use of this word, or these words, is a fair description, and it precisely represents how you saw things at the time? If someone said they weren't responsible for losses, but that Horizon had system errors, that was an attack on Horizon. That's how you viewed matters, isn't it?
No, absolutely not. Like I said, this system has been in existence. You had a senior people to me with more experience who've been dealing with it, and it just somehow or other, this case landed on my desk, and I dealt with it as I felt it ought to be done. I was very careful and cautious, and I think maybe we'll be coming on to it subsequently. I think I put every single thing in it to make sure that it was very thorough. There should be no stones unturned to have this lady being either put through it or certainly found guilty and went to prison for it. That is not the sort of thing I would want to get involved in.
You say in your email, after a lengthy trial at Guildford Crown Court, the above name was found guilty of theft. This case turned from a relatively straightforward general deficiency case to an unprecedented attack on the Horizon system. We were beset with, I think this should read, an unparalleled degree of disclosure requests by the defence through the hard work of everyone, Counsel Warwick Tatford, Investigation Officer John Longman, and through the considerable expertise of Gareth Jenkins of Fujitsu. We were able to destroy, to the criminal standard of proof, beyond all reasonable doubt, every single suggestion made by the defence. It's to be hoped that the case will set a marker to dissuade other defendants from jumping on the Horizon bashing bandwagon. Would you agree that the language that you used is quite breathless and rather emotive in describing the outcome of Mrs. Misra's case?
Yes.
Why did you use breathless and emotive language?
Well, I think the last bit is wrong completely. I accept that, the marker. But like I said to you, it was not my language. I would not write anything of that nature. All I would have done, you've seen the other formats. Mrs. Misra found guilty at Crown Court, the sentence, and that would have been it. But obviously, because this is of interest to the wider internal post office community, or the Royal Mail group as it was, I was put in a position to actually put my name to it, and that's exactly what I did. It wasn't.
So did somebody else type an email which you cut and pasted into this?
No.
Okay.
They
Hold on.
dictated it.
So who dictated it?
I don't know. I mean, I don't know. There's probably various people over
So
the.
a collection of people.
Probably, yes. And I think it was approved by.
Who are the possible candidates for dictating your email?
It was this wording was approved by Rob Wilson, head of criminal law team. I would not ever send anything of that nature. You need to ask him as and when. But I can tell you now, this is not me. This is not the way I would have done it.
So you said that it was approved by him.
Yes.
Was he one of the dictators?
I don't know whether he did or not. To be honest with you, I'm not here to name names. I mean,
I think you just did.
But I did because
I asked you.
Yes, you asked me, and I'm here to assist and help. I'm not here to, to deny everything. I mean, like I said to you from the outset, what is the truth is the truth, and I can't get away from it.
Can we move on from the platitudes, please, and answer my questions?
Yes, come on.
Who dictated this email to you?
I think various people had input in it, but I certainly dictated it.
Who dictated it?
I dictated it for my typists to type out.
Who dictated it to you?
I don't know. I can't.
Who are the possible candidates?
Well, like I said to you, it was approved by the head of criminal law team. That's all.
So Rob Wilson.
Yes.
So he may have dictated this to you and then approved it when he'd seen
Well,
it.
I don't know whether he dictated it, but he approved it. But
And
certainly,
who are the other candidates for dictating it to you?
I think I don't know. I mean, I'm not getting away from it. Maybe it is my fault. Maybe I should say, no, I don't. I'm going to put my name to it. If you want to do it yourself. Maybe that's, in hindsight.
Is destroying, the use of the word destroying to the criminal standard of proof, appropriate language
No.
to have used?
No.
Given the reality was that this was a woman going to prison.
No. And to hear that she was sentenced to prison sort of hurt me quite badly. I mean, for 2 or 3 days, I think, it shook me. Because that's not...
Do you now recognise that the language that you used was unprofessional?
Yeah, wholeheartedly. No, it shouldn't. Nothing like that should ever be.
Would you agree that the language discloses to us, it's indicative to us of a degraded and debased prosecutorial culture within your office?
No, I wouldn't. Mr. Mayor, it's your job to ask that, but it's not. No, I think I work with those people very closely. We find ourselves with here, and I agree with you. It's inappropriate. It
The
shouldn't.
last paragraph where you say it's to be hoped that the case will set a marker to dissuade from jumping on the horizon bashing bandwagon. Who within the post office held that hope?
Well, certainly not the criminal law team. Certainly I didn't. I mean, I wish I know.
No, I'm not asking who didn't hold it. I was asking you who did hold it.
Well, whoever dealt with the cases, I didn't even know that civil litigation had had cases starting from the initiation of or the introduction of the Horizon system. And presumably, the civil litigation department, certainly, maybe the communication team. Those are the people whoever dealt with the Horizon, whoever had any connections with the Horizon. I mean, certainly, the criminal law team, I can put hand on heart. I wouldn't have thought anybody had that. I mean, you've heard evidence from, a couple of the lawyers working there, and they were quite badly shaken. I think one of the ladies, I've forgotten her name now, Teresa. I mean, you saw her give evidence. I mean, she was in tears. She was really broken by.
So who did hope that the Seema Misra case would be a marker that would dissuade other defendants from jumping on the Horizon bashing bandwagon?
Mr.
It was you. You hoped it.
No.
That's why you said it is to be hoped.
Come on. No. Absolutely not. You can ask me that 10 times. The answer is going to be no, no, and no.
Well, of course. That's why you folded your arms and are giggling.
Well, I'm not giggling. I'm sort of hurt inside. It's giggling because it's not true. I'm not giggling at all. I mean, the idea is that making that sort of allegation to somebody who does not even believe in it. I mean, the reason why I was there such a long time, and if I had to go to court and actually physically see these people, then I wouldn't be able to do the job. I think I would have left a long time ago. At the end of the day, this is a paper exercise. You had the investigation file, and you dealt with the paper. You basically weigh up whether there's evidence, sufficient evidence for getting a realistic process of conviction, public interest. And a lot of the time, you're trying to look for a reason for them to deal with it in an alternative way out of court.
Mr. Singh, do you now accept that the aspiration that's disclosed in this email of dissuading sub-postmasters who believed that there were system faults with Horizon from raising such system faults when they were accused of criminal offences was entirely at odds with your professional duties?
Well, look, in hindsight, you can say all sorts of things. The thing
I'm saying that, and I'm asking you the question.
Well, I don't know. What are you asking me to? What are you asking me? Please ask me.
Do you accept now that writing this aspiration, the hope, that the outcome of the case will dissuade other sub-postmasters who might think that Horizon is to blame for for their losses
Well,
from raising that when they're accused of criminal offences is at odds with your professional duties.
of course it is. I mean, I wish that.
How did you satisfy yourself that other sub-postmasters would be jumping on the horizon bashing bandwagon?
I can't. I mean, like I said, this is the one and only case that's gone to trial. I didn't even realise that some of the cases have been started in more or less when the system was installed. So I don't know. I mean, you know, in your position, you can write into all sorts of things, but certainly that's not my thinking at all. I wish, you know, the greatest wish I had was that this sort of case has been, you know, challenged or in the courts a lot earlier. You know, year 2001, year 2002, 3, so we wouldn't have to face this.
We look at a new
It's just landed on my desk, and I dealt with it. But certainly that's not, you know, not my intentions at all. And I'm not smiling. I'm just sort of feeling so aggrieved that you're asking me this, because that's not the idea of you know, it was a challenge to qualify as a lawyer, and the last thing I wanted to finish this off was something like that.
Well, let's look at a new document and see whether you're less aggrieved by the questions that I ask you. Poll 00169170. This is a new document that's recently become available to the inquiry as a result of recent disclosures. And if we just look at the footer, page 1, please. We can see, thank you, stop there, your email of the 21st of October 2010 at 2:58, the one we've just looked at, yes? After a lengthy trial at Guildford Crown Court, the above name was found guilty of theft. Yes?
Oh.
Yeah?
Yep.
And then if we go further up the page, thank you. Thank you. Just stopping there, we can see a reply or a forwarding or a cutting and pasting of your email to a new collection of people, and in part a reply to Mr. Ismay. It says, Rod, brilliant news, well done. Please pass on my thanks to the team. Regards, Dave. And that's David Y. Smith there. That was the managing director of the entire company at that time, is that right?
I don't know. I honestly don't know who Dave Smith is.
Do you not recall there were two Dave Smiths on the emails? David X. Smith, who was head of IT, and David Y. Smith, who was the MD of the company you work for? No?
No.
No, okay. In any event, we know that David Y. Smith was the MD, and he's saying, Rod, brilliant news, well done. Please pass on my thanks to the team. And then if we scroll up a little bit further, we can see that that email has been repurposed by Mr. Ismay and has been sent back to a distribution list that largely represents the distribution list of your email. Can you see that?
Yes.
And he says, dear all, please note Dave Smith's thanks to you all for your work in this important case. Dave and the ET, the executive team, have been aware of the significance of these challenges and have been supportive of the excellent work going on in so many teams to justify the confidence that we have in Horizon and in our supporting processes. This is an excellent result, and big thanks to everyone. Rod Ismay, Head of Product and Branch Accounting. And so just to scroll down a little bit, you can see what happened. Your email has been sent to some, would you agree, big figures within the organisation, including Rod Ismay. You knew who he was.
No.
You didn't?
I don't think so.
I mean, presumably when you received the email back you did, because under his signature block it's got that he was head of product and branch accounting.
Well, that I knew, but I never met the guy. I didn't know. I didn't even know what the head of product or branch accounting was, to be honest.
Mike Moores, did you know who he was?
No.
Mike Young?
No.
Paula Venables?
I only when I joined the Post Office Limited.
And so that was a couple of years after this, or a year and a half after this, in April
Yeah.
2012.
I mean, probably heard the name, but I've never met her. I didn't have any dealings with her. I don't think I've directly emailed her or had any communications with her. I don't think so. I don't.
But anyway, the message coming back to you is that Dave, who I've told you was the MD of the company, and the executive team have been aware of the significance of these challenges.
Yes.
Did you know about that when you were litigating the prosecution of Seema Misra?
No, I don't think so.
That the executive team were keeping an eye on what was going on?
No. I honestly did not. I just dealt with it in the normal scheme of things. I mean, obviously it was complicated and difficult, but I didn't know, that there was a, big interest. I mean, I assume it would be, but because, the post office are relied on Horizon because it's, it was there tailor-made for their business. I don't know, 12, 13, 14,000 units they had at the time. But even that aspect of it only came, to my knowledge, purely because having dealt with the Misra case. The Misra case opened up everything. It has educated me or advanced me in the whole, the whole business, I suppose. I didn't know anything about, the way the system was put together.
Is the way that Mr. Ismay describes your work as justifying the confidence we have in Horizon accurate?
I don't know. Well, I don't know what he thought, but I mean, and certainly.
Did you see it as your job to justify the
No.
confidence that the organisation had in Horizon?
No.
Was the prosecution an exercise in justifying an existing belief, an existing confidence in the Horizon system?
No. That is not the way I handle this case.
You see that's how Mr. Ismay seems to have viewed it.
Yeah, but then I can't, control what he thinks or he doesn't think.
This is more than a pat on the back, isn't it? A congratulatory email about the outcome of one prosecution case.
Well, that's
many others,
I just went went on with my business. I mean, went on to start doing it with the other case. Case was left.
Presumably you didn't receive emails from exalted company like this very often at the end of each successful prosecution case, did you?
To be honest, I don't really, I don't know how to put it. I'm not really into all this sort of side of things. I'm not a public sort of person. I didn't think anything of that. I mean, I don't know whether I saw it. I even read it once, maybe, when it came in, closed it. And I think a lot of the time I'm not really IT sort of person. I had a desktop on my desk, but I don't think I paid much attention to it. I was a traditional old school lawyer. And I don't think this sort of thing is not for me. And you can make whatever interpretations you like, but that's not what this was. I mean, I actually tried to assist Mrs. Misra in every respect I could. When she said she wasn't, good at IT, I actually, for the first time, I think, got her HR record to hopefully, fingers crossed, that proved that she wasn't. But obviously, it didn't. But no, that
Sorry,
is...
you say that you sought out Mrs. Misra's HR record to hopefully, fingers crossed, help her out.
Help assist her in the sense that she was saying whatever she was saying, that she wasn't good with the, with the IT side of it or whatever it is.
I'd ask you to remember that answer.
I will. Yeah.
That you were trying to help Mrs. Misra
Well,
out
not help
with
her.
your fingers crossed.
Well, no, but yeah, that's the wrong expression because I probably, I'm not comfortable with the questions you're asking, and I think purely because that doesn't justify any of the interpretation you're putting on it, because that side of it didn't really wasn't what it was. I didn't even know any of the people, whatever they did or didn't do, or Paula Venables, Mike Young. I mean, I don't know what positions they held. until even Mike Young, I don't even know how he fitted into the business. Paula Venables I did purely because she was the legal executive at Post Office Limited and she was on the same office.
Mr. Singh, isn't it right that the reason why this case was seen as significant and important, and the reason why you wrote your email that we've just seen, is that the case was seen as essential to justify the continued confidence of the Post Office in Horizon?
No.
Isn't it? So that's an appropriate moment.
Can I just add something?
I'm so sorry, you've got another answer.
Can I just, yeah, if that was the case, I wouldn't be dealing with it. It'd be someone like Rob Wilson or maybe Juliet McFarlane. Juliet McFarlane was the lead in this sort of case in the, the prosecution of sub-postmasters. It wasn't me. I was just more or less dealt with the straightforward prosecutions of sub-postmasters, as you would see from the case studies, the cases you listed. So it wouldn't have been me. It was just by pure coincidence, accident, or whatever it was. That was the reason why I dealt with it.
Thank you, Mr. Singh. So, if it's convenient to you, might we take a break?
Yes, and what time shall we resume?
10 past, please.
Yeah, certainly.
Thank you, sir. Good afternoon, sir. Can you see and hear me?
Yes, I can.
Thank you, sir. Can we move forward, please, Mr. Singh, to December 2013? I'm still asking you questions about culture and mindset within the Post Office prosecution lawyers team.
Certainly.
Poll 0014-1653, please. Thank you. And can we turn to page 5, please? Just to give you some context to the questions I'm going to ask, we can see an email to you from Roderick Williams, a litigation lawyer. At Jarnail, senior management has asked for the, quote, current position on prosecutions. When paused, what do we have in train? Can we put something together? And then if we go, please, to page 3 and scroll down. You say on the 4th of December, please find attached a current snapshot of the position of Post Office Limited prosecution cases. Let me know if you need anything further. And then if we go to the bottom of page 2, please. An email from you to David Oliver. Who was David Oliver?
No idea, honest. I mean, at that time, there was so many teams set up, so many people coming and going, so many QCs, senior lawyers, agents. I honestly don't know how he fitted into anything.
So at this time, December 2013,
Yeah.
Just to orientate ourselves, Second Sight was undertaking its work, yes?
Yes.
This is after Simon Clark from Cartwright King's advices, yes?
I don't know. I mean,
We know they're July and August 2013.
yes,
Yep.
possibly.
We're going to come back to all of this next year, Mr. Singh, i.e. the extent to which the Post Office continued to prosecute people in the light of information revealed to it and advice that it received, and whether there was an attempt to cover up information and documents that might have led to criminal convictions being overturned. But I'm looking at it for a different purpose at the moment. You say to Mr. Oliver, following my discussions with you and Belinda, can you remember who Belinda Crowe was?
I think she was the head of something. I mean, I don't know what, because it was difficult because there's so much going on. People dealing with mediation, people dealing with all sorts of aspect of, the mediation, chief executive appearing before committees, and all, do you know what I mean? Belinda, I have met her. I don't know what position she was heading, something or other, but years on, I've forgotten. I don't even know her surname. I mean, probably
Crowe.
Yeah, there it is. There, yeah.
You continue, here is a quick note which may help with some of the answers to, and I think that should be the board's questions. So looking at this, does it seem as if the board of the Post Office Limited had asked some questions? Is that right?
Yeah, that's what it looks like.
And then under the heading live prosecution matters, one, it was regarded acceptable to proceed with. Two, number of the prosecutions were in the pipeline and currently in court. Three, looked at case by case and decision made on them to continue. And then over the page, 4, certain cases terminated after review. Others were safe to continue with guilty plea. Admissions and not challenged, the horizon in court, i.e. defendant made full and frank admissions, pleaded guilty, substantial amount theft of money, breach of trust. It would have been a miscarriage of justice to let them walk free. Therefore, the prosecution continued. 5, the cases were not stopped because it did not need to be. 6, have Post Office stopped every single, I think that should read had Post Office stopped every single prosecution, what signal would, does that send out about confidence in the horizon system? Now, I'm going to come back next year to ask you about what all of this means and what was being done in terms of deciding which cases to proceed with, which cases were proceeded with because an admission had been made, which cases were proceeded with because an admission had been made but no horizon disclosure had been given, and the like. But then you continue advised on, here former General Counsel, I think that should be, gave instructions that no further summons to be issued for the time being. One security team wished to continue investigating, and cases, I don't know what this means, were advice on and prepared for the following reasons. A, so that evidence was not lost, witnesses' recollections deteriorated prior to any statements being taken. B, so that investigation team could continue to process the work and get the prosecution in ready condition, thereby avoiding impossible workload as and when prosecution is resumed. Hope this helps. So it seems like you're explaining which cases are going to court and which cases have been advised on. Yes, and why you're continuing to work on cases, and the investigation team are continuing to work on cases, even though General Counsel had given instructions that no further summonses were being issued. Yes?
Well, I don't know. I mean, I don't know how to explain this, but it's such a long time ago. There was, there's so much pressure, and I think it's very easy now. You've got the time to actually consider all that, but that was don't forget, the prosecution has been tendered out to a third party, and that's more or less what their position was for me to advise in turn. So it wasn't.
At the moment, I'm not asking you to justify what was done or asking you the substance of what was done. This is just to give you some background to the email that we're looking at, to see in what context it was sent.
Yes, just update.
And then can we go to page 1, please? At the bottom of the page. Mr. Oliver replies to you, Jarnail, thanks for this. I have a few questions now, and we'll probably come back with a few more if okay. And then if we just go to the top of the page, you replied saying, please see my reply in red below. Yes?
Yeah.
And if we scroll down, there are 4 questions, and if we can just highlight the questions to start with so we can see what they were, if Frankie can highlight them in yellow, please. So question 1 is, on the live prosecution cases, can you give me a few paras on why you were proceeding with the POCA enforcement hearings? Yep. And then there's your reply, which would have been in red in the email, in the original. Do you understand?
Yes.
Then over the page, please. Question 2 is under that bullet point, what is a PCMH stage? Yes?
Yes.
And then your reply, we can see it because it's in a different font, begins the PCMH stages. Yeah? And then question 3 is, what is a mention before trial? Yeah?
Yes. Yes.
And then question 4 is, of the 31 advised on cases, how many are being worked on for further evidence? How many has there been advice to charge, and how many are awaiting the expert witness? Can you see that?
Yes.
So they're the 4 questions, and everything else is your reply in red. Can you see that?
Yes. Yeah.
So on that 4th question, that's the one I want to ask you about, you reply to the question, how many are being worked on for further evidence? How many have there been advice to charge on? And how many are waiting expert evidence? You say, these are not mutually exclusive. As the landscape now stands, in most of the cases, it is better that we have the expert instructed, as any case begun now will attract some type of horizon issue, because this is the passing bandwagon people are jumping on. When we have a few wins under our belt, the horizon challenges will melt away like midnight snow. In some cases, e.g. Redmond, we do not need the expert, as she's made full admissions. But the cases where horizon can be completely ruled out are few and far between, even if it only goes to quantum, i.e. value of loss. Much of the work requested in our charging advices is dotting I's and crossing T's. Most of the cases advised for charge will be sound prosecutions with comparatively little extra work, when we either have an expert statement in the bundle or we can't get one if the horizon is raised in a case. Sorry, or we can get one if the horizon is raised in a case. If you have any further questions, please don't hesitate to get back. You see in that answer, and this is December 2013, after Second Sight has started its work, after the Clark advices have revealed in Mr. Clark's view that Mr. Jenkins was a discredited prosecution witness and couldn't be relied on in court.
Yes.
And that disclosures needed to be made, which may undermine the safety of some criminal convictions. You're saying that people raising horizon issues are doing so because there's a passing bandwagon. Why did you form that view?
I don't know. I had it's a sort of, this isn't just one person. We worked as a team because there was so much going on. It was a team effort, team view. It wasn't a decision made by me. It was a decision by people working on it, and not only internally but externally. There are people with a lot of experience in this type of work. So this is not a personal view. It was the general view, put in that answer.
This is your email.
Yes.
It's no one else's email.
No, but we worked as a team. I don't know. I can't explain.
Did somebody dictate this email to you?
Possibly. I don't know. I mean, certainly. I honestly can't answer that. It's such a long time ago. Certainly, when your pressurized situation is completely different, now it is completely different because now we've got the time to consider it, time to actually digest it all. But that's what it was at that time. But I can't give you any explanation of why it was put in that way, because there's too many issues that came together.
Why in December 2013 did you and the team still view the horizon issue as a passing bandwagon that people were jumping on?
I don't know. I can't explain it to you. I don't know why that view was at that time. I don't know.
What evidence had you got by December 2013 that there were no issues with Horizon affecting the integrity of the data that it produced?
Don't know.
Why was it important to get some wins under your belt?
Again, I don't know.
Why did you say, when we've got some wins under our belt, the horizon challenges will melt away like midnight snow?
Don't know.
Please help us.
I wish I could. I mean, it's such a long time ago.
Are you struggling because you realise the crassness of what you wrote?
No.
And you haven't got a justification?
Not at all. If I could, I would. But at the moment, I'm struggling in the sense that I can't explain to what happened in year 2013, and we're in year 2023 on to 24. At that time, the situation was what it was. Now people have been wrongly done, and they've been complaining about something for such a long time, and they've been proved right. And I feel aggrieved about it as much as they do, and probably not even more, because I was in a position to do something and I didn't.
Is this email further evidence that the mindset that you displayed in your email of October 2010, after the conclusion of the Singh Misra trial,
No.
continued and was still your mindset in December 2013?
No.
There's nothing wrong with Horizon.
No.
People who say there is are jumping on a bandwagon. We're going to get some wins, and the issue will melt away like the midnight snow.
No.
Look at the last paragraph. You say much of the work requested in our charging advices is dotting I's and crossing T's. Most of the cases advised for charge will be sound prosecutions with comparatively little extra work. Is that reflective of how you, in your time acting in the criminal law division, worked? Namely, your role was just to dot I's and cross T's.
Where are we talking about? Old Street, or are you talking about Eccleston Street? Are you talking about a criminal law team, or are you talking about the prosecution support?
Well, let's divide them up then.
Yes,
From
please do that.
August 1995 until separation in April 2012, was your role then as a criminal lawyer, to dot I's and cross T's on advice files?
No.
After April 2012 and before December 2013, was your role as a criminal lawyer when advising on charge to dot I's and cross T's?
No, because I didn't do any of that work.
Why did you say most of the work is dotting I's and crossing T's?
I don't know. I honestly can't help you, because I from what you're suggesting, I didn't advise on of it. It was tendered out.
Well, is that how you viewed matters? You didn't take a serious look at the evidence. You didn't evaluate its strengths and weaknesses. You didn't apply a critical eye to the evidence in a case. You just dotted the I's and crossed the T's.
No.
So why did you write this?
As I try to explain to you, CLT this doesn't refer to criminal law team in the sense that we're in year 2013. At year 2013, I'm basically working with the agents. The agents are the ones who are doing all the work. Presumably that's what their position was, and I'm just highlighting to within the business as to where we are.
Can we move on and look at a summary, a different summary you gave of the outcome of Mrs. Misra's case? Poll 0011.
Mr. Beer, before that comes down, there is one thing that occurs to me. If you haven't asked the questions because you're going to do it in a different context, I won't ask any now, but otherwise, I'd be interested to know who the expert witness is referred to in the paragraph that's highlighted.
So which one? Where are we?
Well, I'm asking Mr. Beer, first of all, whether he wants to deal with this in a different way or whether I should ask you the question.
So can I answer it in two ways? Firstly, I hadn't presently intended to look at that issue, but it may help us in our investigatory work on reflection in readiness for next year.
Yeah.
And so I don't think any harm will be done by asking now.
Right. Well, then, Mr. Singh, do you see the paragraph which begins of the 31 advised on cases, which is highlighted?
I think, is it at the top, isn't there? I can't see it, sir.
Oh, it's about halfway down the screen.
Oh,
and
sorry,
it's
yes,
the
yes, I've got it here.
question that you were going to answer, all right? And it ends by saying, well, let me read the question. Of the 31 advised on cases, how many are being worked on for further evidence? How many has there been advice to charge? And how many are awaiting the expert witness? Now, it's that last bit that I want to ask you about, all right? Because I'd like you to tell me, if you could, the identity of the expert witness they're being referred to.
So at that time, from my understanding, is that Cartwright King were looking for an expert and they couldn't find any, because as I think you've been hearing a lot of evidence. Is this system is very specialist. This Horizon system relates to the post office, and
Yeah.
I think one or two times I did attend with them. Some of the universities, some of the professors, they weren't, in Cartwright King's view, they weren't good enough to deal with it. So I don't know. At that time, we didn't find an expert.
So when you reply, as the landscape now stands, in most of the cases, it is better that we have the expert instructed. You are there indicating, are you, that there should be an expert instructed, but you don't know who that person is at that moment in time?
So the position there was that I didn't do any of the work. It was tendered out exclusive to a third party, Cartwright King, and it's basically they are telling me, I've asked for a progress report, how to reply to it, and it's basically their answer. They say, well, look, this is the position, and all I'm doing is relaying to the business. So it's not something that I have a personal knowledge of.
As far as you can recall, Mr. Singh,
Yes.
was an expert ever identified in late 2013 when this email was being written, or subsequently?
So no, it wasn't.
Right, all right, thank you.
Thank you. So that can come down. Can we look at a further summary of the outcome of Mrs. Misra's case much later, please? Poll 0011-3015. And can we start at page 10, please? We can see an email exchange between Lena Hamid and Sophie Bialetsguski. I'm sure I mispronounced that. Saying, hi, Sophie. We haven't got that information, much information, as there's not CQR yet. I imagine the legal team will have the criminal case files, so Jarnail will be able to provide a breakdown of the merits of the case. As far as the scheme is concerned, this is a summary of what we have. Seema Misra was imposed from, some dates are given. MP at the time of her application was Jonathan Lord. Incidents reportedly occurred in the summer of 2005. No specific references to Horizon issues. Cites lack of support as the main factor leading to the losses. Alleges that the post office threatened her and used mental torture. Howe & Co represented, funding agreement signed in November. Still awaiting on a CQR from the applicant. Apparently SS, I think that's second site, have it for refinement. And then go to page 9, please. And look at the bottom, please. We can see who Sophie was, a public affairs manager in the post office. She now copies you into this email on the 11th of June 2014. Thanks so much, Lena. Roderick / Jarnail, would you be able to provide me with a bullet point or two on the legal position, e.g. unanimous guilty verdict by jury or whatever it would be? Then up the page, please. You reply, Sophie, something along the lines of, Seema Misra was sub-postmistress at West Byfleet. She was accused of stealing £74,000 between 2005 and 8. On the 21st of October 2010, after a 7-day trial, she was found guilty by the jury of the theft. And then bottom of page 8, please. Reply, hi, the comms team might need a bit more to help them tell our side of the story. Sophie, please correct me if I'm wrong. Is there any more detail you could provide, e.g. around the trial being a fully contested adversarial proceeding with X number of witnesses, including experts being cross-examined? 2, that no appeal was ever pursued against conviction or sentence or both, or if it was, how far it went? And 3, the implications of a jury verdict, e.g. that it's 12 people unanimously agreeing that all elements of the offences were proved beyond reasonable doubt, etc. And then if we continue to scroll up, please. Sophie says, yes, please. Thanks, Rod. Then scroll up again. And then you reply, how about the following, in inverted commas? After a lengthy trial at Guildford Crown Court, the above name was found guilty of theft. Is this looking familiar to you, Mr. Singh?
Well, yes,
Why does it look familiar to you?
because post and paste from the previous one. Previous, the final
The
result.
one from 4 years earlier.
Yep.
This case turned from a relatively straightforward general deficiency case to an unprecedented attack on the Horizon system, etc., etc.
Yep.
And then you say outside the inverted commas, albeit it is a quote from your original email of October 2010, it's to be hoped that the case will set a marker to dissuade other defendants from jumping on the Horizon bashing bandwagon. Those were sentiments that you still felt in June 2014, weren't they?
No.
Why did you write this then?
Look, I didn't felt them from the outset. I don't feel it then. It was just basically reiterating what was said before. So no, that is not true.
So why did you write an email to media and PR people who were asking you for something that would allow the post office to tell its side of the story to the public in June 2014, which you didn't believe was true or to be the case?
Look, sir, position then and now is completely different. So I can only apologise to everybody. Maybe it's hurt their feelings or even hurt them deeply, but I can't explain. Sorry.
Can we look at the response from Sophie in Public Affairs at the top of the page? Thanks for this. Would it be possible to get the bullets Roderick sent below with the correct numbers in? And then the 3 questions are repeated. And she says to you, your para is too emotive for us to use, and so a factual account would be best. Was it often the case that Public Affairs and PR people told you that your copy was too emotive for them?
No, I had very little to do with them. To be honest, I wish I had even less.
It's normally the other way around, isn't it? PR people are trying to get you to give good copy, say things that are emotive.
I'm sorry, sir, but I can't answer that. I don't have much dealings with them. I have no experience with them. So that was the first experience and probably the last, and I'm happy with that.
She was asking you just to give the facts, not to overlay emotion onto it, wasn't she?
I don't know what she was asking. Such a long time ago, I have no idea how to explain that to you, but that was never my motive from the outset up to now.
By the time you wrote your email in June 2014, where you cut and paste your email of 4 years earlier from the last day of the trial that we looked at this morning, you knew about the Helen Rose report, didn't you?
I know it was set up. I know they wanted some help to help her to needed some help. That's about it. I don't think I had much more to deal with it. I had, by that time, I think Cutright King had taken care of the prosecution side of it because I didn't have the capacity or know-how or support to deal with it. So they basically were dealing with the prosecution side of it. They were dealing with her directly.
You knew by then that Simon Clarke had advised that Mr. Jenkins was a discredited witness who'd breached his obligations as an expert witness, and that the Post Office had breached its obligations of disclosure as a prosecutor, didn't you?
Yes, I did, yes.
And you knew that those points applied in Seema Misra's case, didn't you?
I think it applied all aboard. I mean, from the outset of the installation of the actual system itself, yes.
And you knew that the Post Office had stopped prosecuting because it had been unable to find an expert that would stand up in court and back the Horizon system, didn't you?
No, I wasn't involved in the prosecution at that time.
Had the Post Office been able to find an expert that would stand up in court and back the Horizon system by June 2014?
Again, it's a matter for Cartwright King. It wasn't a matter for me. They were physically, practically involved in finding it and finding it suitable for the Post Office to authorise and approve and pay for to deal with it. But I didn't have any dealings with it.
You were overseeing their work, weren't you?
Only a matter of... No, I wasn't.
What were you doing?
I was helping the Post Office internally. There was too many other...
Sorry?
There was other pressing matters.
What was more pressing than the possible wrongful conviction of dozens or even hundreds of sub-postmasters?
That side of it was taken over by the QC at that time, Brian Altman. You had, senior clerks, senior barristers, counsel from Cartwright King, and I think they had a few other people involved. They had the senior management involved. I mean, as you will probably see, a lot of this email, I'm not CC'd in, so no.
So given that you knew that Simon Clarke had advised that Mr. Jenkins was a discredited witness who had breached his obligations as an expert witness, and that the Post Office had breached its disclosure obligations as a prosecutor, and that those 2 points applied in the Seema Misra case, why were you churning out the same old PR message?
I don't know. I can't answer that because I can't explain it to you years and years ago.
That had previously been an internal message, hadn't it?
Yes.
But you were now repurposing it for public external consumption, weren't
No,
you?
absolutely not. If I'd known that, then I wouldn't have done. This is internal team, and it's not just for communication, it's for other people as well. I wasn't involved in it, and I was CC'd in, and I told them what the position was in the Misra case. That's all, how the results came out, and what results were, basically updating them to whatever the conclusion of the case was.
Can we go to what your reply was to Sophie's suggestion that your paragraph was too emotive to use and ask for a factual account instead? Page 1 of this email chain. And then if we scroll down, your email back to her, to Sophie, with other people copied in, including Chris Oyard, you say, Sophie, Mrs. Misra continues to protect her innocence via the media. The summary below shows that there was ample evidence to justify a conviction. Then if you just look at the document, paragraphs 1, 2, and 3, and then if we go over the page, and then just scroll through it, please. And scroll through it, and scroll through it, and keep going, 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 keep going. And then you sign it off, hope it helps. First of all, who actually drafted this email?
Various people. I mean, there's various people involved in drafting it. It's not just, it was...
It appears to contain no spelling mistakes or missing words, which, if you'll forgive me for saying, is your normal way of writing, i.e. with spelling mistakes and missing words. And it doesn't appear to be in your style of writing.
I can't help you on that. I don't know, but it's such a long time ago. I mean, I have no idea. But there are, it's a teamwork. It's not a one individual to put it all together. And the other thing is, I'm not a good typist, as you probably worked out. Used to dictating work, and it probably gone to somebody to have it typed for me to approve with a few others.
And we look at some of the other contents to see whether it helps you. Page 4, paragraph 18, please. And if we scroll down, the author says, the two criminal files I looked at are of some significance. Joe Hamilton and Noel Thomas have been prominent critics of Horizon in the media. Their cases were similar to Mrs. Misra's. Both were sub-postmasters who chose to hide deficiencies by false accounting over a long period of time rather than declare their losses, etc. Is that something that you did? Look at the criminal files of Joe Hamilton and Noel Thomas?
No.
So this tends to suggest it is somebody else who's writing it.
Possibly, yeah. I to be honest, now that you mention it, you've got the time to analyse it, scrutinise it, but at that time, it was difficult. I mean, to do what I did for an individual, it was next to impossible. So you had people assisting, helping, putting stuff together. You're right that, but certainly Joe Hamilton case, Noel Thomas case, I've never dealt with them. I don't know.
Could we go to page 5, paragraph 20, please? Your email says, Horizon is a complicated computer system about which even eminent experts can make mistakes. There was no reason to doubt Professor McLachen's expertise and good faith, but time and time again he had to be corrected by Mr. Jenkins. Professor McLachen is not the only expert to have misunderstood Horizon. I have spoken to colleagues who prosecute these cases, and they have come across other experts who have also fallen into error. I can say that both sides in Misra were completely beholden to Gareth Jenkins and his deep knowledge of Horizon. Again, is that you speaking there? I have spoken to colleagues.
Possibly not.
Or is it somebody else?
I have, my job was enjoyable because I was talking to a lot of people. I was gaining a lot out of it. It was stretching. It was complicated. But that's the sort of thing I enjoy. So it was enjoyable in that sense. But I can't say to you that certainly, that more or less goes back to the fact that there's a number of people involved in assisting and advising and putting these sort of things together.
So this might be you actually writing this?
No, I don't. Maybe a contribution towards it. There's a lot of people making contributions towards these things.
At the moment, Mr. Singh, I'm just trying to work out, by taking you to bits of this email, to help you to work out whether this is your work or whether you've cut and pasted something else that somebody else has said and repurposed it for yourself.
Well, as you know, I mean, when you do this work, you obviously do have help. And certainly I had a lot of help over that period because it was
I'm asking about something different, which is cutting and pasting somebody else's work.
Yes,
and passing it off as your own.
Yeah, I think you will get a lot of that everywhere, and certainly the work I deal with, that was the only way I could cope with it and deal with it, and I did. And that probably was a paragraph from somewhere, or probably a lot more than the paragraph, or maybe quite a few from it. And maybe I asked somebody, look, the Misra case, can you help me? Can you highlight or bullet point the lessons we learned from the Misra case? Yes.
Which other lawyers, other than you and Warwick Tatford, were involved in the Seema Misra case?
I think Rob Wilson, Juliet McFarland, maybe Debbie, I don't know, what was, she's changed her name now, hasn't she?
Debbie Staples.
Staples. I don't know. Certainly, maybe somebody else from Belliard. Certainly, the two legal executives, the investigation officer. You name it. It was a big team because it was a big. It was just unmanageable. I mean, the post was so vast to deal with it as a one individual.
I'm looking at potential authors because the person.
I've given you the, they're giving you basically the.
But you were happy to put your name to this and say you own this email and the contents of it.
Well, I was happy.
Weren't you?
Well, I was happy to put my name to it purely because a lot of it, from again the Misra case, I didn't go to court for 7 days. I think I started it off. Certainly, I had a lot of counsel's opinions and views and advices on it, as you know. But certainly,
But Mr. Singh, you wouldn't write an email with all of this content unless you were happy with the content, would you?
well, like I said to you, these things work purely because not for one individual. Somebody's got to put their name to it. It wasn't me, it would be somebody else.
But in that case, you would say at the beginning, this is a summary with multiple contributions. I, Jarnail Singh, can't vouch for everything.
Sir, you would do because you're just a wise and experienced practitioner. But when you come to
Did you lack experience?
to my level.
And lack wisdom?
No,
Is that
to
what
my
you're saying?
level, it's different.
Sorry?
It's a different level. It's a different degrees of work. I mean, certainly, if I was doing it now, then I probably would have done. But that time, there is pressure of time, and there's other matters to be dealt with. People wanted these sort of advices, these sort of prompters yesterday, not today, not in 7 days' time, in 14 days' time. So what you do, or what I did, was to get help and put something together to pass it on.
Can we go back to the beginning of the email then and look at the content? Page 1, please. Mrs. Misra continues to protest her innocence in the media. The summary below shows that there was ample evidence to justify a conviction. That was still your belief, was it, in June 2014?
No, absolutely.
Why did you write it then?
Because that was the job I was asked to do. I was asked to summarise
It was your job to say things you didn't believe.
Well, I can't answer that. I mean, at that time, I wrote it, and now I regret it, I suppose.
Well, I'm asking you why you wrote it, not whether you regret it now.
I don't know. I was asked to summarise it, and with the help of other people, I summarised it. So you asked earlier, why didn't I put a summary? There it is. The summary below shows, and a lot of the people who made a contribution towards it obviously made a contribution to assist me at that time.
But you're adopting this as your work. There's nothing on this that tells the reader that this isn't you speaking here.
No. When you do work, you have a lot of researchers, don't you? Do you actually put their names to every single thing that some people made a contribution towards it? It's a team effort. People who knows whose work it is because they worked with me at that time. It wasn't an individual. I couldn't sit down and churn that out within, 2 hours or 3 hours or a day when I was asked to do it. So the only way I could get the work done, it was to, seek a contributions from the people who could help, and they did, and here we are.
You say the Misra case at Guildford Crown Court in 2009 to 2010, as far as I am aware, is the only criminal trial where a jury's been required to consider in detail the integrity of the Horizon system. Paragraph 2 is a cut and paste of your earlier email. 3, Mrs. Misra claimed that although she was guilty of false accounting, she'd not stolen the money whose loss she had concealed. She suggested that one possible reason why the money appeared to be missing might be computer error. The jury heard from expert witnesses for the Crown and Defence. Their evidence was sufficiently detailed to have lasted 2 full days. The jury's verdict showed that it was sure that computer error played no role in the case. There has been no appeal against conviction. And then over the page, please. The defence made very wide-ranging requests for disclosure, and the prosecution was asked to review material relating to a number of other offices where sub-postmasters had made complaints about Horizon. That disclosure process was fraught with difficulties, mainly because the disclosure requests were unfocused and often irrelevant. If we'd complied with every disclosure request, the investigation department would probably have been paralysed for 6 months, the investigators being unable to deal with any other work. I'm aware that Mrs. Misra continues to protest her innocence via the media and that she's one of a number of vocal critics of Horizon. It's perhaps worthwhile setting out the facts of her case and what happened at trial, because some of the critical reports of the case have not been accurate. You set out in paragraph 6 what happened in the audit. In 7, a plea and case management hearing. And then 8, when Mrs. Misra's case was listed for trial in June 2009, she brought to court material from the internet detailing a number of complaints about the Horizon system made by former sub-postmasters. The Post Office Limited agreed to an adjournment of the trial to allow the defence to pursue this new line of inquiry, even though it was likely that Mrs. Misra was jumping on a bandwagon now that she had finally realised her original defence didn't work. So it was still your view in June 2014 that Mrs. Misra was a bandwagon jumper, is that right?
I think hindsight is, if I'd known what I know now, then obviously no. But the thing is that no, that was not the case. But it was, like I said, a teamwork, or people who knew the case made a contribution towards it, and I think it was decided to put it in. But certainly, it wasn't my decision to put it in. Let's put it that way. I certainly wouldn't have thought of that originally, now, or any time, because that's not the way I write. I mean, as you know, rightly say, I'm not that good at typing. I'm not very good at putting something that together, but that's why I'm probably one of those can't work without a team. I'm not a guy who can just come and work. Every time I did something in life, or certainly in the profession, I always had people around me. I mean, I can do certain things very well, certain things not so well, and if I don't, I have people who can. So I put a sort of team together to be able to exist, and then certainly, hopefully, to do a job or do the work to a high standard, and that's what I've done. It was a team effort.
You continue in paragraph 9. Mrs. Misra changed solicitors. There then followed a difficult period when the Post Office Limited was subjected to an avalanche of disclosure requests. We were also served with a series of so-called interim reports by a newly instructed defence expert called Professor Charles McLachlan. These reports raised theoretical possibilities of things that might go wrong with Horizon. The reports contained no evidence for the theories and no explanation as to why any of these theories might be relevant to the West Byfleet office. Our efforts to control these disclosure requests fell on deaf ears. We repeatedly made the point that the case was not about whether the Horizon system was perfect. No computer system can be perfect, and errors can arise on any system. The issue was whether anything had gone wrong at West Byfleet. The person who would know that was Mrs. Misra. At the very least, she'd be able to identify what sort of problems she'd encountered and where on the accounts the deficiencies were emerging. She'd know this because she would have physically checked the stock against the computer records. I'm going to come back to that belief that you had, that it's the sub-postmaster who would know most about the operation of Horizon later. 10, it emerged in the trial that in spite of our requests for a focused approach, defence expert Professor McLachlan had never sought any information from Mrs. Misra. His theories were simply his own. Mrs. Misra had given him no guidance whatsoever as to what might be going wrong at West Byfleet. The Post Office Limited instructed their own expert, Mr. Jenkins from Fujitsu. This was a turning point in the case. Professor McLachlan fairly conceded that Mr. Jenkins had given him very great assistance in understanding Horizon. Mr. Jenkins was able to explain to Professor McLachlan how many of his theories were not valid and based on a misunderstanding of Horizon. Mr. Jenkins advised that the only way to assess any problems at West Byfleet was to obtain the transaction logs and to examine them for potential problems. Obtaining the logs was expensive and their analysis was time-consuming. However, after both experts had completed their analysis, neither could find evidence of any computer error whatsoever that could have contributed to the deficiency. In his evidence, 12, to the jury, Professor McLachlan conceded that all of the theoretical problems he had raised were now irrelevant. He abandoned most of his theories after being assisted to a better understanding by Mr. Jenkins. Other theories he had checked against the transaction logs and had found to be baseless. In a nutshell, his final conclusion was this. He hadn't found any problem, that there might still have been a problem that he and Jenkins might have missed. The jury clearly rejected this as wishful thinking after considering all of the evidence in the case. At 13, about 3 lines in, she, that's Mrs. Misra, was on the scene to witness the symptoms of any computer problem, while the experts could only trawl through the data long after the event. Any sensible sub-postmaster would have hunted high and low to ascertain where in the accounts the losses were occurring. A sub-postmaster should be able to find the location of the problem, even if they could not solve it. Mrs. Misra had not made any such rigorous checks. She'd simply accepted each loss rather than declare the deficiency in the monthly balance, as she was required to do. She'd hidden it by false accounting. Over the page. If we go to paragraph 17, it can be seen from this summary there was ample evidence to justify a conviction. The jury was entitled to conclude that there was only one sensible reason for Mrs. Misra to cook the books, to hide her own stealing. An honest sub-postmaster would have reported the loss immediately. This is what they're required to do. It's also the obvious step out of self-interest. At the very least, it would nip any problem in the bud and limit the amount of money the sub-postmaster might have to repay. Also, if a genuine problem was found with the computer system, there'd be no question of repayment. Mrs. Misra claimed that she had not wanted to lose the post office, and that was why she'd been so secretive. This ignored the obvious fact she'd allowed the loss to grow to such a catastrophic amount that it would have been better to give the business away. The jury was entitled to reject her evidence as absurd and to conclude that her belated attack on Horizon was nothing but a desperate distraction technique. Was that your view in June 2014, that Mrs. Misra's questions as to the integrity of the Horizon data were nothing but a desperate distraction tactic?
No.
So why did you write it?
I didn't. It was, as I say, it was a team effort. It was a unit. Somebody wanted a summary of what happened in year 2010 at the trial, and that's basically bringing them up to date to what happened in the Misra case.
So who in the team was responsible for this effort?
It was joint effort put together by a number of people, I think. I more or less told you the people who were involved in it, who had a hand in it, and that's basically all I can help assist you with.
Was it representative of an underlying assumption by that team, even in June 2014, that sub-postmasters raising Horizon issues during investigations were lying about the causes of losses at their branch and were doing so as part of a distraction technique?
No.
Can we move, please? That can come down, thank you. To poll 0010-8394. And can we look, please, at page 4, please? And scroll down, please. Can we see this as an email to you of March 2014 from a paralegal, Renata Prywarwick? Did Renata Prywarwick work in Post Office Limited Legal or Royal Mail Group?
No, legal. Legal, she assisted all of us in the team. I think that the names of all the people in the team. And
she says, "Hi all, I've been asked by Piero." Who was Piero?
I think, I don't know, where for 12, 14, I think maybe a joint team leader or head of legal when he, I think, left by then. So he was, I suppose, a joint head of the legal team at the Post Office Limited.
I've been asked by Piero to collect information about your matters. Could you please create a list of your top 5 matters, including a short description of each matter? Yes?
Yes.
And then can we go to page 2, please? Can we see your reply to Renata and to Piero? Renata, please see below top 5 matters in criminal prosecutions. Yes?
Yes.
And if we scroll down, please. Number 1 is auditors training.
Yes.
And if we go over the page, sorry, at the bottom of the page too. I don't think it's in bold. Number 2 is Scotland.
Yes.
Number 3 is expert. One of the important issues has been to locate a suitable expert and instruct them. I'd translate that as.
Yes. Yes.
Identified an expert, accompanied Cartwright King to a number of meetings with expert, and it's hoped to be instructed shortly. Sorry, it is hoped expert will be instructed shortly. In these meetings, discussed important issues and assisted in briefing of the expert. By liaising with different areas of Post Office Limited, gathering information on technical aspects and funding, and Fujitsu as appropriate, and liaising between external lawyers and internal Post Office Limited departments, feeding information to experts who then become better informed to be able to deal with horizon issues and scope. Current and ongoing prosecutions cannot recommence until instruction of independent Post Office Limited computer expert is instructed and his report is in hand.
In hand, yeah.
Yeah. How many experts did you approach?
I didn't personally approach any.
How many meetings did you attend of experts that were approached?
That was left in the capable hands of Cartwright King, and I think Simon Clark was basically given the task. And I don't know what he did, but certainly, that's what it was. And
You say here that you accompanied Cartwright King to a number of meetings. How many experts did
I
you
personally
attend upon?
I think probably only 1 or 2, but a lot of it was their CVs. I think they passed it over to me. But it was tasked for Cartwright King because they're the experts. They're the one who know what they're looking for. They're the one who will prosecute or not prosecute. They're the ones who would advise on those things. So it was left in their capable hands. So this is basically a 1-to-1. I mean, she wanted to know 5 matters I'm involved in, and I gave her 5 matters.
And they're all about horizon, aren't they?
Yeah, I suppose, yes.
Four, Post Office mediation scheme. And then 5, revised prosecution policy and future of Post Office Limited prosecutions. You say Post Office Limited has an in-house security and prosecution team. As part of its remit, it undertakes investigations and, where deemed appropriate, will undertake criminal prosecutions in line with the business prosecution policy. If an incident is considered to have sufficient evidence to prosecute, it's passed to the Post Office Limited legal team for review and consideration against the evidential and public interest test. Legal team's recommendations are then passed to the head of security, and if satisfied, he will then make a decision on prosecution. And then you say, A, there's no doubt that this year will be the most challenging in terms of a number of key factors. The findings of the second site review, the £20,000 threshold on anomalies for potential audit and prosecutions policy, and significantly, proposals have been submitted for contract advisors not to precautionary suspend as a matter of course without first considering whether or not the subject remains in the post office. And then B, following the second site review and revised prosecution policy with a resultant cultural shift within the business, greater emphasis will be placed on fraud prevention and early intervention activities. It's envisaged that a number of fraud risk programs will be initiated this year, driven by emerging patterns. The success of these programs will only be achieved by a collaborative approach with other security strands and key stakeholders. You're reflecting here that there was a fundamental shift in 2014 to the approach to prosecutions, aren't you?
That's what I put. That's what
And that's true. There was a fundamental shift, wasn't there?
That's what the business decided. I mean, I think it was probably at the meetings or whatever it is, but it's not my decision. It's what the business was going to do or not going to do. I don't know. I mean, I'm not part of the management. I'm not part of the board. Maybe one of the meetings I was part of, and that's what they decided the way they were going to go. So all I'm doing is putting down is one of the things I'm working always part of.
Prior to that time, had the post office enjoyed a culture of prosecuting cases?
Oh, is that a question? Sorry.
Yeah.
You have to ask.
The senior lawyer within the criminal law team?
Maybe I'm a senior lawyer. Maybe that's just the title, but I didn't get involved in any of that. I don't know what it is. I think it's probably somebody like Rob Wilson, maybe somebody you had, Mr. Marsh, who was head of security, maybe somebody from the board, maybe whatever it is. But I can't answer that question because I don't know. I wasn't part of it. But all I can tell you is that the reason why it's there, because obviously I was told that's what they were going to do going forward, what the future looked like.
Prior to this shift in prosecution policy, were criminal investigations and proceedings launched without a proper basis?
Of course not. I wouldn't. No.
Why was a change necessary then?
I don't know. As I said to you, I wasn't involved in the first instant what you're describing as I don't recognise it, and the second bit is I'm highlighting what I've been told. That's what the post office want to do, and I'm just saying, well, that's what the post office want to do in the future or presently, but I can't answer that because I was not part of any decision making, wasn't part of in the management of it. I'm just a little more or less a case worker in the sense I described in my statement.
If we go over the page, please, to C. Cases will only be raised for criminal investigation once all alternative avenues, which may culminate in a successful outcome, have been explored and dismissed. The decided course of action needs to be proportionate, justified, and necessary. Cases raised for investigations will be limited to those likely to seriously damage the brand or reputation of the post office. Other cases will be considered where there's a clear and obvious business need to conduct a criminal investigation. Who decided that cases raised for investigation will be limited to those likely seriously to damage the post office's brand?
I don't know. I mean, presumably the board, presumably the management, maybe the head of the legal. But certainly this is, again...
but this time you were the head of the criminal law team, weren't you?
I wasn't head of anything, to be honest with you. I just went in as a challenge, as an opportunity, and I can reassure you I was not head of criminal law. I think the outside world probably did because I was the only criminal lawyer, and I think originally they wanted Rob Wilson to go in, and at the last minute he dropped out, and I was put forward, and I think in the last minute, and I think this post was on the 1st of April 12, and I think I was more or less told the end of March, probably the middle of March, do you want it? And I considered it, went to see Cartwright King, I liked it, and I knew it would be tough. So I took that opportunity as a challenge, and that's what I did.
Who at the post office was driving the message then that prosecutions would be launched if they damaged seriously the brand or reputation of the post office?
Well, I think, again, it's not down to me. I don't think I was part of it. I was probably told about it. Would be the head of legal, the board, maybe head of security. Certainly, you've probably seen so much work, so much emailed. I'm not probably copied into most of it. I mean, I'm copied in as and when they need some advice or assistance on the legal front. But even on the legal front, I'm passing it over to Cartwright King because they're more handle, because they're actually physically dealing with the prosecution on our behalf.
But why were decisions as to whether to launch criminal investigations and pursuing prosecutions clouded by concerns over the reputation of the post office?
I can't help you with that because I don't know. I mean, I'm not part of the thing is that if they flash those words out, it may have some meaning, but then a lot of the work at that time and even now is all bullet points, and so you need some sort of content to it, some sort of background to understand what it all means. But I wasn't part of any of that as to why they decided to do what they decided to do.
Can we turn, please, to poll 0012 7280? And look at page 2, please. And scroll down, please. Can we see an email from you here to Angela van den Bogart of May 2014?
Yes.
And in the second paragraph, you say there will be cases in which it will be clear from the outset that the Post Office Limited will need to conduct a criminal investigation with a view to potential prosecution to protect the Post Office Limited brand and reputation and for business purposes. Why would the protection of the Post Office brand and reputation be a relevant consideration in deciding whether to prosecute?
I've told, I've repeated it many times. I've been told that's what they wanted to do. All I'm doing is highlighting it to the rest of the team as to where they're going. I mean, as to whys and hows and the purposes, I wasn't the person to give you the answer to that. I don't know where you would be able to get the answer now. I don't know who else is coming to give evidence to the inquiry, but certainly I can't assist you any more than what I have. All I've done is highlighted what the Post Office want to do and how they want to do it.
What were the business purposes were you referring to there when you say that sometimes there will be cases where a criminal investigation with a view to potential prosecution needs to be commenced for business purposes? What were the business purposes?
I don't know.
What business purposes could justify a criminal investigation?
7th of May 2014. I don't know. I mean, such a long time ago, I've been away from this sort of area of work, and certainly the Post Office for a long time, and I've been involved in other matters, other legal as work. I can't, say hand on heart to tell you exactly what it was, because I don't remember as to what the purposes were. I've forgotten about it. That's the past. It's been left there.
Earlier in the piece, between, say, 2000 and 2012, were business purposes brought into account when deciding whether to prosecute or not?
I think I don't know. I mean, I don't know. I mean, such a long time ago. To try and explain it all to you would be wrong of me to tell you, because I can't honestly answer that.
Is a business purpose, or was one of the business purposes you're referring to there, the protection of the integrity of the Horizon system?
I don't know.
I.e. will
only
prosecute.
The person who made the decision would know. I don't know what they were thinking or the reason for it being there.
Was one of the business purposes debt recovery, using criminal prosecution in order to recover debt from postmasters?
I don't personally know, but I don't know what the other people thought or why they did what they did, but I certainly didn't think of it that way. I mean, my thing was...
If we've ruled out those two things, the business purpose of protecting the integrity of Horizon and the business purpose of recovering debt from sub-postmasters as a motivator or a relevant consideration for prosecution, what were the business purposes to which you're referring?
I'm not referring to anything. All I'm doing is repeating what I've been told to tell the rest of the team.
So you're just following orders, really?
Yes.
Thank you very much. It's 1:20, sir. Might that be an appropriate moment to break? Could I ask that we come back at 2:10, please?
Yeah, fine.
Thank you very much, sir.
Okay.